everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Outside Line Podcast. The Outside Line Podcast. Outside Line Podcast.
Hang on to her, buddy. There's still three. He got him. He's
It just makes sense. It's too logical for them, for NASCAR, though.
Carson.
I'm glad you hear us, NASCAR. Make sure you keep listening. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take a breath here. That was a long rant.
Those cars are a lot tougher than an F1 car.
Yeah, that's what I like about IndyCar. You really need the spotter.
This is going to be fun.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Outside Line Podcast. Thank you guys for joining us for episode 15 today. We're 14 episodes through, on to episode 15. I'm joined by Christopher Shoemaker. Chris, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing all right. Had a good weekend. Had a good holiday. How are you?
I am doing good. Enjoyed the long weekend for sure. No Jacob Barker with us today. Jacob is busy this week, so we're going to be catching him again next week. But it's just going to be me and Chris this week, so we're excited to get things ready and rolling for episode number 15. Now, getting right into it, talking about F1. F1 was at Canada this past week in the Canadian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen was your winner, followed by Fernando Alonso on the second place, and then Lewis Hamilton in third place. Chris, what are your thoughts from this Canadian Grand Prix this past weekend?
I'm actually very surprised with Aston Martin, like we were talking about last week. I had them maybe finishing 6th and 9th. Nice. But but yeah, I think I'm actually really surprised by Alonso, and I'm sadly, in one way, I'm not surprised with Ferrari because they screwed up the strategy again. Why would they not pit during a safety car?
It was quite interesting when it happened. I just sat there and I'm like, really? And they gained that track position, but that was all they gained for the rest of the race. That was it. I think they lost a spot or two, but that was it. They really took themselves out of any contention for a podium with that move. It was quite interesting for sure. And as you said, Alonso up front, we didn't expect it. I'll say this though, Lance Stroll was in 9th, so he followed suit with our expectations, but Alonso definitely didn't. And credit to Jacob. Jacob's obviously not here, but he got his entire podium correct. That's the exact way he predicted the podium last week. And so congratulations to him. Obviously, me and Chris were way off because neither of us had Alonso up there, but I did have Hamilton and I did have Max. So I'll take what I can get. That's for sure. But it was quite an interesting race for sure. There was a lot of different things that went on, and Nico Hülkenberg was up there at the front for a little while, and then obviously that untimely safety car that really hurt what he could have done yesterday. And then also George wrecked out yesterday. He came back from quite a ways. He wrecked the car early. They were able to get some fixes on. I think they had to fix the front wing, and then after they fixed it, he had gotten all the way up to 7th by the time he had the car had finally let go. But a bad run for George, not the run they were looking for. Definitely the opposite of Lewis this weekend.
Yeah, I think that was a missed opportunity with Mercedes, just because they would have picked up some big points there, and maybe they would be third right now. Excuse me. And maybe they would be third right now in the constructors. If I don't know what the points are off the top of my head, I'd have to look, but they would at least be a lot closer. And Alonso's just carrying Aston Martin right now.
Oh yeah, Alonso, especially in the point standings. We talked about it last week, right? It's about to break 100. Obviously, with the podium, he breaks 100, so he pushes up to 117. Right now, the point standings after this weekend, obviously Max way ahead. He's at 195. Then you have Sergio Perez at 126 right behind him. Alonso's not far behind, 9 behind in third. And then at 4th, you've got Lewis Hamilton, who's at 102. So those are your top 4. They're all inside of 100 points. And then Carlos Sainz in 5th, he's got 68. And then George Russell's back in 6th at 65. He could have used those points tremendously yesterday to kind of keep pace with everybody else. That race may be one we look back on later in the season and say that's where he kind of fell off and lost pace with the rest of those guys, because obviously Alonso, good run. Obviously Hamilton, good run. They got really good points this weekend, and Russell walks away with nothing. So not a good look for him. Leclerc sits 7th at 54 points. Stroll is 8th with 37 points, and obviously far away from Fernando, who's at 117 points. The two of them have been miles different from each other this season. And then to round out the top 10, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly at 29 and 15 points. So Alpine has both their cars in the top 10 right now. But yeah, the main story is Lance Stroll completely off compared to Fernando Alonso. You mentioned it before we started the show, Chris, but would they be better if Stroll was kind of canned and wasn't racing for them anymore? Would they be better?
I mean, in one way, it's kind of irrelevant because his daddy owns the team, and that's not going to happen. But, and theoretically, let's say they had Mick Schumacher on their team. Since they're Mercedes powered, are they still Mercedes powered? I think so.
I believe so.
It would make sense for Schumacher to be on there, and imagine a Schumacher Alonso lineup. That would be. Schumacher got a bad rap. I think he would be that right there and getting points relatively consistently. English is hard, man. But yeah, I think they would be 100% better if maybe Stroll was gone. Although I will admit he has had his moments of brilliance here and there. Got a podium with Williams in Baku a few years ago, I believe. And he's had a few podiums here and there, but so he can be quick. But at the same time, there are better drivers out there. There are better options: Schumacher, Gasly, others that I can't think of, etc. Why are your thoughts about it?
I think they'd probably be better off without Stroll. I think you have to look at the fact that Alonso has ran miles ahead of him, and specifically yesterday was a home race for Stroll. Stroll is Canadian. He's from Canada, so yesterday is a home race for him in his home country, and he finished 9th, and he really wasn't a factor at all. So I think that you can look at the car and blame the car at certain times, but there's something when the two cars are so far off from each other, right? And I think that's why there's so many questions right now about who am I thinking of? Who's the other one that's far and away from each other? I can't think of it, but there's questions about a lot of guys because they're far away from each other in the standings, and just ultimately, I think that they're going to be better off without Stroll. But like you said, that's not going to happen. So, where do they go? That's the big question. But
yeah, maybe Lawrence buys an IndyCar team and shoos Stroll over to IndyCar. He might actually do better at IndyCar.
I feel like he'd have some success over in IndyCar, but you never know. Who knows?
And Nelson PK also said that racing at your home race, I think it was PK, said that racing at your home race is worth like 0.2 a lap or something like that. And if that was Stroll's 0.2,
Yeah, definitely felt like he should have had a better run. And the fact that Alonso finished on the podium in a race that we didn't expect them to run well is something. But at the same time, right, he finished 9th, and we didn't expect them to run well. So he performed to our expectations. We should be proud of him. He performed to our expectations. He made us look smart.
That's true.
We should be proud of the fact that he made us look good. Alonso made us look like crap, and he made Jacob look like a genius, and he's not even here to back it up.
And I will say this about Alonso too. He gets like 110% out of the car. He drives better than he overperforms the car. That's not even the right word for it. He he kind of reminds me of Schumacher a little bit, how he could way overperform and put a car in some place where it shouldn't be. And that's what Alonso does. So I'll give Stroll that benefit of the doubt, but still though.
Alonso's like a Kevin Harvick type, where like they're kind of the same in that sort of aspect. And so they both can run really well, and I think that they're both carrying their teams, right? Harvick is I mean, he gets way more out of that car than everybody else at SHR can get out of those cars. So it's kind of a similar thing. And Stroll has obviously had a lot of success in the sport. So I think it's important to keep in mind too in the debate, right? That obviously Alonso's had all that success, and Stroll is very young. Stroll's 24 years old. So there's that big difference too. Obviously, Stroll's going to grow and he's going to get better. But I think the biggest question is, does he get to that point where he's kind of like an Alonso? How much does he get from Alonso, and having Alonso as a teammate? How much does he get out of that? In 10 years, are we talking about him in the same way we're talking about Alonso right now? That's the real question.
No, definitely not. No disrespect to Stroll, but Alonso's won 2 championships.
Correct.
And he beat Michael Schumacher. Granted, the year that he beat Schumacher, the Ferrari was just having generally a bad year, but still, he beat Schumacher. Stroll wouldn't beat Schumacher.
No.
And
he'd have to beat Verstappen, and he wouldn't be able to do it.
That's nothing to hang your head at, though. I mean, probably 99% of the field wouldn't come close to Schumacher. So, I mean, for those on the radio side, I just shrugged.
For those who can't see, he gave the Christopher shrug, which I feel like we've seen a lot on this show.
The shrug. But yeah, I don't know. So I guess, like we were saying, it's a moot point because that's not going to ever happen.
Right.
But I do believe Aston Martin would be second in the standings right now if they had a better number 2.
Absolutely. And just to take a look at, let's take a look, actually, we don't ever really talk about it much, but the constructors standings right now. Obviously, Red Bull at the top, it's not even close. They're at 321. Mercedes sits at 167 with Aston Martin at 154 and Ferrari at 122. Ferrari not looking as hot. And then obviously that is the race, because Alpine sits at 5th with just 44. So it's very clear kind of where the constructor standings lie and who's going to be. I wonder who's going to win the constructors championship. I think, I think I'm pulling for, let's go Williams Mercedes. They're got 7 points right now. That'll be my pick.
Oh yeah, that can make a comeback. Why not Haas?
Yeah, why not Haas? Right after this weekend, why not Haas?
But I mean, wouldn't it be something if they had one of the biggest meltdowns in history and Alonso ended up winning somehow?
I think it would it would make things quite interesting. I was listening to a podcast today that mentioned F1, and the guys that do the podcast, they watch other forms of racing, but they don't watch F1. And they said, like, the same guy wins every week, that Max dude. And I'm like, yeah, that is a factual statement. So like, if that something happened and Alonso came out of nowhere, or anybody came out of nowhere, it would set the world on fire. It would set the entirety of F1 on fire, because everyone is clamoring for somebody else to win. It's all anybody wants right now. So
and Red Bull's perfect so far this season, aren't they?
Let me look. I think that they're pretty close. Let's see. Verstappen, Perez, Perez, Verstappen. Yeah, they are absolutely perfect. And Verstappen has yet to finish off the podium.
Yeah, so it would take a major meltdown. And do you think that Alonso will win at some point this year?
Honestly, I do. Alonso's been having a really good year, and we've seen he's finished in third multiple times. He's finished on the podium: Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Australia, the U.S., Monaco. So he's gonna break through at some point. Obviously Verstappen and Perez are two of the best, but we've seen Perez be a lot less consistent than Verstappen, and obviously Verstappen's kind of the consistency king right now. But at some point that reign has to end, right? At some point something's gonna happen. And somebody's going to be there to capitalize. And I think that Fernando Alonso is going to be the guy that's there to capitalize. He has been there and he's waiting. And it's going to be, he's just got to hope it's not one of those days where Sergio's running fifth,
Right. And I think it would take, of course, it would take luck to just have some reliability issue or Verstappen getting a crash or whatever. But personally, I think it would be Hamilton or Charles over Alonso. Alonso's there, but I don't think he has luck, to be honest with you.
No. By all means, no. But I think Hamilton could too. Hamilton's been solid, and I mentioned it last week, right? They've continued to improve, and I said I wanted to see them back that up this week. Glad that they did that. He got that third place finish, So Hamilton's continued to kind of back things up, and I think we've seen some of these veterans start to rise up a little bit, and I think that one of them's going to break through at some point, right? Something's going to happen. It's just a matter of who's it going to be, right? So we'll see. When's it going to happen? Too. That's another big question. Are we waiting? Do we end up waiting until October for it to happen, or is this something that happens in 2 weeks? Speaking of 2 weeks, right? Looking forward, the Austrian Grand Prix, that's going to be July 2nd. So we've got a week off from F1, and then we're back at it with the Austrian Grand Prix on July 2nd. Just any quick preview thoughts on the Austrian Grand Prix? Obviously, we'll preview all of it next week, but any quick thoughts?
It's Red Bull's home race.
Oh, are they? Will they win?
Yeah. Yeah, and then they're probably going to have the orange smoke. I tell you, I think they should ban the orange smoke because, one, that can't be good to breathe. Two, you can't see. And three, it gets on the track.
Yeah, fair. I'm trying to think. I don't think the old yellow smoke at Homestead used to get on the track. So maybe they should take a page out of their book if they're going to do something like that. Because Homestead used to have the yellow. I miss the yellow of the burnouts. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah,
Homestead, for some reason, was always that one race that I would miss. I don't know why. I just never catch Homestead.
It probably didn't help that most of the time, right? Jimmy probably had the championship locked up. So you're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Even before Jimmy's time, though. Homestead was just one of those races I always missed for some reason. I don't know why.
Dang. You missed out on the flat days, man. When the track was flat. I'm glad I missed out on those days. I love Homestead now. It's one of my favorite tracks.
Yeah, and those were the days where IndyCar raced on it, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think they could now, could they?
I haven't. I don't know what the banking is. Probably not. The banking's probably too high.
That's what I feel like. The banking's gonna be. It's because it's pretty steep now. It's not flat like it used to be.
But yeah, I'm expecting Red Bull to win. I expect a 1-2 in Austria.
Absolutely. We talked about who's going to break through. Well, it's not going to happen this week. I'll tell you that much. It's going to be a Red Bull weekend. So the Austrian Grand Prix, July 2nd. We'll talk more about it come next week. We'll make our podium predictions with Jacob in-house as well. Moving on, though, we want to talk about Oh, Chris has a point.
I will say this though. Going back to Canada, I can't believe Ferrari didn't put on full wet tires at some point during the race.
You think so?
Just because.
They could have. Hey, Ferrari has had a lot of questionable choices, and
I
Sunday was
swear,
no better.
some guy who plays F1 manager or motorsport manager or whatever would be better in their strategy department than their current strategy department. And I genuinely think that. I'm not making any sort of exaggeration, which that's pretty bad.
Well, and like obviously, like nobody else agreed with what they were doing because I think they were the only ones that went as long as they did on the first stint. So their choices have definitely been a little questionable. It does kind of feel like maybe like a 9-year-old trying to play F1 manager for the first time, still kind of figuring things out. And they got up and went to go get a snack, and then they're like, "Oh crap, I forgot to send them down pit road. I forgot to hit the button before I got up.
Oops."
Whoopsie." They're like, "Oh, there was a safety car?" I was like, "I was trying to grab my Cheetos. I didn't notice. My bad. My pizza was done. I had to take it out of the oven."
Did you
burning.
see Charles? Did you see Charles' comments during the race weekend?
I don't think so.
I don't remember what he said word for word, but basically he's getting pretty fed up with Ferrari, which I can't believe it's taken him this long. How long till he's out?
Not going to be long if they keep performing the way they are. That's for sure.
Are they performing bad, or is it just their strategy? I don't know how they perform, honestly.
I think it's, oh man, I think it's kind of a combo of both. I don't know. I feel like they haven't been as dominant in qualifying. Like I feel like they've been getting more mid-pack, and like they're putting themselves in bad situations from the start. I feel like, and then it just doesn't. They try to do something off because they're trying to be different, and then it doesn't work out. And so they just need one race where they start up front and they stay up front, and they just need one unbothered race, one race where no stupid crap happens, and just one clean, calm, just get it home to the finish line.
We had 2 races with no yellow flags this year. They still did terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we had obviously it doesn't matter if there's a safety car or not a safety car, that they're gonna, one way or another, they're gonna fudge up their schedule or their strategy. That's the way to do it.
As a person that's been a Ferrari fan for a large part of my life since the Schumacher versus Hakkinen days, this hurts.
Where are they at? They're and they're not as good in the standings right now either. Obviously, we talked about it. They're a little bit lower in the standings than you would want to see, and all of that kind of mounts to the fact that, like, okay, in the regular driver standings, Sainz is ahead of both Russell, and he's ahead of Lance Stroll, and Leclerc is ahead of Lance Stroll. But then when you go to the constructor standings, completely different result right now, with them sitting in fourth, and it's not even that close. They're at 122, and Aston Martin's at 154 in third. I mean, they are falling behind, and when Lewis is going to keep ripping off these podiums like this, it is not a good look for Ferrari to then have the absolute worst strategy out of every car in the race yesterday. Like people can rip on Hülkenberg, but that was simply because the safety car came out at a bad time and his stint was done, right? Ferrari just simply fell asleep at the wheel and just forgot to come down pit road. I don't know, like, just the weirdest thing. And who knows how they finish, right? If they make that pit stop, But Jesus, it's like, give yourself a chance. Like it's a help me help you situation. You know, like, do you want? It's like God's like, do you want to run well? Yes. Okay. Well, then you have to help me help you. Okay, and you have to actually use your brain.
Maybe Ferrari should get some of the guys that was that won with at Le Mans. I know that's not technically Ferrari, but what's the worst that could happen?
Those guys strategize for 24 hours. I think they could do it for an hour and a half.
I also saw a graphic too. I don't know if it's during the race or not, but it labeled Antonio Giovinazzi Ferrari reserve driver. The disrespect there. The absolute disrespect.
What can I say? Disrespect is nothing new. I feel like there's a lot of guys that get disrespected in F1. I feel like that's a usual thing nowadays.
You are about to go full. You're with Ferrari. You're about to start ranting on like you did about Austin Dillon.
Yeah. Honestly, just the more I think about it, the more like frustrating the Ferrari move is. So on that note, right, let's go ahead and move on. Obviously, I wanted to bring out F1 23. F1 23 came out this past weekend. Chris, have you been able to get your hands on it? Have you seen any gameplay or anything?
I've seen a little bit of gameplay, but I haven't been able to play it at all yet, which I'm curious. I'm very curious because I keep seeing really good things about it. And I was honestly just going to skip it this year because there weren't that many new features that I was really excited about, because to me, it seemed like, say, comparing an EA Sports game like NHL 21 to NHL 22, it really didn't seem that different for me. So I was thinking about skipping it. But just the improvements that they made, apparently, I really want to try it now.
Yeah, no, those quality of life improvements, and I mentioned it in our group chat. The biggest one would be the controller, right? I've played on a wheel, I've played on a controller before. I like both. I've played on both many times, but I think I don't always want to play on my wheel. There are times I want to play on my controller. I just want to chill on my couch. I don't want to feel super intense. I don't want my shoulders to hurt, because I get really into it. And there's been times I find myself, especially when I'm doing NASCAR stuff and I'm racing online at Talladega, I will find myself gripping my steering wheel so hard it will give myself a headache, and I have to remind myself to just breathe. And I'm mid race and I'm like, okay, you got to relax a little bit. You're super tense right now. That's my biggest thing. And so when I do it on the controller, I don't ever get that way. And so I've really enjoyed the controller play so far. I think it's really easy to get into a rhythm. The car it listens to you. And the guy that I watched the review on, he described kind of using the controller and trying to drive the car. He described it walking an obedient Doberman through a meat market, right? It listens to you and it does exactly what you want it to do. And I think that's been the biggest point for me, is that it has done what I wanted it to do. And then when I tried using the steering wheel, I felt like I was actually getting more out of the controller than I was the steering wheel. Because the controller, I felt like I was able to steer more than I was the wheel. The wheel obviously has I need to still mess with my wheel settings and see if there's ways that I can make it better. So it's not all hope is lost. But from what I had noticed, the controller was so much easier for me to use. And the vibrations on it are fantastic. The way they did the vibrations, and they did the new curb, the way the curb works and everything like that. All of that stuff has been very key. And I feel in total control with it in my hands. And I don't feel like in years prior where it's super touchy, and if I touch it barely, it completely throws things off. So, and I give them credit because I haven't been able to really run racing games with a controller for a while now. I have struggled. I can't run World of Outlaws with a controller. I have to use my wheel. I used to be able to run NASCAR Heat 5 with a controller, and then I started using my wheel, and then after using the wheel, I lost the ability to use a controller. So I can't use a controller there anymore. So being able to use a controller for F1, it's very good for my replayability. I will play it so much more because I don't always have to have my wheel with me. And so if I want to take my Xbox to my girlfriend's house or something, I'm still going to be willing to play the game. So that level of detail in the controller was number one on my board for why the game works. It just, I feel so much more in the seat of the race car. And I've had a lot of fun with, I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I wanted to see what this F1 World was like. F1 World has been a blast so far. There's obviously some solo challenges and stuff that you kind of have to work through, but you're not required to do a lot of them. And to be fair, I really don't think they help out a ton. I don't really think they do a ton. The whole point of it is you have like your garage, right? And then you get parts, and you get parts in abundance. Like I haven't spent a dime and I get a crap ton of parts. There's no packs. It's not like Ultimate Team where you got to go get packs from the store and then you're ripping open packs and it's like, oh, I hope I get this. It's not like that. You earn them based off of like achievements, and it's more randomized where you'll like, I'll come out of a race and then it's like, hey, you earned this, this, and this. Here you go. And then you plug it into the car. The biggest thing is like there's a tier system to the different parts. There's legendary, epic, rare, and then common. The biggest difference is if there's something like a common part, right? It's just going to be the part. So like it'll be listed as brakes for power level of like 198, right? But then if you get a legendary brakes, it can be power level 198, but then it also adds plus 12 to tire wear after pit stops for 60 seconds after pit stops. Like it's little details like that I think have been kind of cool. I think it's definitely created parity when you do the races because there's definitely some guys that are a little bit better, but I don't feel like it's not pay to win at all. I think you can get some of the parts in the store, but it's not really worth it because you can also build them yourself. And so like I built a couple legendary parts and they were better than any of the parts the game had given me. And I had all the resources to get those parts. It was really easy to get them. So just by playing, the game feeds you stuff constantly. And so I felt like that whole aspect, it was really good. It doesn't feel EA-ified. The coolest part about it was taking the car that, you know, you work on and stuff, and then you go into ranked play. And each week they've got 3 tracks in ranked play, and they switch through those tracks each and every week. And so like this past weekend was Canada, Brazil, and Japan. And so Canada and Brazil were the 2 main ones that I raced on. I raced on those 2 tracks a ton. And I kept getting better, and I had a lot of fun. Obviously, Chris, I mentioned in the pre-recording, right? So there's the different licenses as well. You have like A, B, C, and D. I'm already an A license, so I can hit and bump other cars. But if you're in the lower license, you have ghost cars. So that kind of makes it more fun too, because unlike the NASCAR games, you don't just get wrecked out and that's it. With the ghost cars, you've been able to kind of like, I can have a full race under my belt and just worry about what I have to do. I don't have to worry about somebody else wrecking or somebody else spinning out. I can focus on what I need to do. And so I've done a few races right at the higher tier, and I got wrecked out in the first corner because somebody absolutely blew the corner at Bahrain, because that's the new track for one of the new tracks for this week's ranked. So that part kind of stunk, but I've enjoyed racing in it so far. It's very competitive. I've won one race out of the 7 or 8 I've done. So I was able to win 1 at Canada. It was a hard fought race. And it's been fun because some people are really good and they kind of match your skill level. So fighting with them has been a blast. I mean, I've enjoyed it. Racing at Brazil was a lot of fun. You'll get random races where you're in the rain, and that really changes things up. Like I lost a race this weekend because it started raining and I chose to come down for intermediates earlier than I should have. I was trying to strategize it because I was in 3rd. It did not work out for me because I came out on intermediates. Pretty much. I went to, and the part of the problem was I was trying to decide on it, and then the guy in front of me came down pit road, and I was like, all right, I'm coming too then. Fine. If you're going, I'm going. That's fine. And we both absolutely messed up the strategy. But I was all right. It was fun. It added this cool element. It started raining in the middle of the race. So there's a lot of things that I like. I like the multiplayer, and I've never been big on F1 multiplayer. But having that ghost car sort of aspect, I felt more comfortable because I felt like I couldn't mess up anybody's race. And then when I got into the races where you could touch other cars, I've actually done pretty solid of giving people the room that they need and stuff like that. And it's been fun. I've kind of like, not to toot my own horn, but there's certain things that I've gotten good at. Like I'm really good at passing in especially I can pass on the outside really well. There was a couple times that I, especially online, was able to pass on the outside, and if I can pinch you down just right to where you have all the room you need to make the corner and get through, but you do not have the room you need to gas that thing back up and get around me. And so that has worked. I figured out how to do that, and it's been working magnificently. Ultimately, my ultimate point, the game's tremendous. I am enjoying the heck out of it. It's the most fun I've had in a while. I've played the career mode, obviously, and stuff. So I'm enjoying it. I was playing Diablo 4 on the side of it, and I've stopped playing. I've taken like a 4-day break off of Diablo, which is terrible for my character, but I'm just enjoying F1 that much. I played it a lot this weekend, and I had a lot of fun.
That's saying something too, because all the streamers are absolutely loving Diablo right now.
Oh, it's fun. Trust me, I am enjoying the heck out of Diablo. But F1's been a lot of fun too, and also F1's very with the times right now. Not saying Diablo's not, but Diablo's going to be there in a couple weeks, and not saying F1's not going to be either. I'm just saying, I don't know. It's brand new. I'm having fun with it. I'll keep doing my ranked. Eventually, I'll start to burn off, and I'll start doing I'll come home, I'll run a ranked race, and then I'll hop on Diablo or something like that. But it's definitely a fun game, and I recommend it for a lot of people. There's a lot you can do.
I always say that a game is worth $1 for every hour where you initially play it. Like, for example, if you spend $60 on a game and for the first 2 weeks you play well over 60 hours, you got your money's worth, because that shows you're having fun with it. And I absolutely hate paying full price for games. I'm cheap. Man, I'll wait for 6 months before I get a full price game. Like with NHL, I wasn't even considering getting it until the Cup Finals over. And to be honest, I don't know what the price is right now. But anyways, that actually has me thinking, just by all the good reviews and everything, then what you were saying about the controls and just how well the car drives. And honestly, I had fun with F1 22, and I still have fun with F1 22, but I can see where a few people could be frustrated about it. And so, yeah, I might be down for trying it.
It's fun, and biggest difference for me was F1 22. I almost always used my wheel. I could use my controller, but I was slower on the controller than I was on the wheel. Now it's the opposite. And who knows, that may flip in a few months the more I play it, because I think it was always like that playing F1 22, but I could be wrong. But that could flip in a few months. But either way, the controller play has been enough to where it's just, there's been so many quality of life changes that I think there's been a lot of improvement. Obviously the career mode is fun. Obviously the story mode is fun too. So add in the F1 world, if you plan on doing online stuff and you're comfortable with that, I think it adds in a whole nother element that can be enjoyable. There's also a league racing section, and I don't do league racing, but I'd be intrigued to see what that section actually does. I haven't clicked on it. I don't think there's anywhere I can go, but it's intriguing enough. But to kind of round out our F1 points, I definitely think that you should get the game. I think it's a fun time. So I highly recommend. If you see me on there, my name is V2 Riptide. It is my old Xbox gamer tag from when I was, I think I became V2 Riptide when I was 13, back in my Call of Duty Ghosts clan days.
That's a throwback.
Yeah. I used to be a part of a clan in Call of Duty Ghosts, and so I used to be called V2 Riptide. And before that, I was part of BWO, and so I was BWO Drop Shot. But that's a story for another day.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this most recent edition of the Outside Line podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to check us out on Spotify at The Outside Line. And if you liked Christopher, Jacob, and I's opinions, make sure to check us out on Bagsport's page for more articles and opinions about F1, NASCAR, and IndyCar. Thank you again for watching The Outside Line.